All right, now before we get into this, I want to say that we reached out to Jeff Gerstmann for a comment on the story. Sadly, we weren't able to get one before this broadcast. I don't think he's actually allowed to talk about the thing. Also, GameSpot released the following statement a few weeks back. They say, quote, GameSpot takes its editorial integrity extremely seriously. For over a decade, GameSpot and the many members of its editorial team have produced thousands of unbiased reviews that may have been a valuable resource for the gaming community. At CNET Networks, we stand behind the editorial content that our teams produce on a daily basis. So I know the story is like a week or so old, but I was on the road, and then I had, the avian flu. So now that the dust has settled, perhaps we can get maybe a slightly clearer picture of what happened. So let's get into it. My guest tonight, coming to us from San Francisco, editor for Wired's Game Life blog, Kohler joins us. And here in Los Angeles, editor for Kotaku.com, Mike McWhertor. Welcome to The Loop, everybody. The internet, of course, has been ablaze with conspiracy theories suggesting that Jeff was fired because of this single bad Kane and Lynch review. Mike, let's start with you. Do you believe that this is the truth? And why is the real story such a secret here? I mean, it was a pretty high-profile firing.
Yeah, I don't know that we really know the real story behind what happened with Jeff Gerstmann, and we may never know. But I don't think it was necessarily this one review that was, I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think that my impression was that there were a lot of disagreements with management, and there were a couple contentious reviews, and I don't believe it's just this one thing, but it was unfortunately really bad timing on the part of GameSpot and CNET management, and it just didn't look so good.
Chris, do you agree? Do you think it was just clearly bad timing, or was there more going on here?
I don't know if it was bad timing. I think that whether or not the Kane and Lynch review was the one thing that led to his firing or not, and it's seeming very much like it wasn't. The problem is that CNET let its employees kind of think that, because all of the rumors that were coming out about Kane and Lynch were coming, on Kotaku and on things like Valleywag and Penny Arcade that kind of started it all, were ostensibly coming from GameSpot employees. And so the fact that they didn't let their employees, give them a clear picture of what was going on seems to be what gave rise to all of the rumors in the first place.
Right, and nobody can fault a website for the ad revenues that it generates from its sponsors. I mean, we get that's how they exist, but the problem occurs when companies get paid to advertise the same products they're supposed to be reviewing, of course. And Mike, I mean, how can people expect any objectivity when sponsors are paying people's salaries here?
Well, I actually think in GameSpot's defense, they have been very clear in the past about how objective they are about game reviews. They try to separate their news organization from their previews people from the reviewers as to who looks at a game when. And as far as the timing issue that I referred to earlier, I think that was more along the lines of that the review was still the review was fresh, that the ads were plastered across the site, that they had pulled the site ads down, and it just didn't look so good for IDOS to.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you've reskinned the site with giant skyscraper ads, and the quote on the page is basically "Don't buy this game,"
and then it was pulled down that night. That's what I mean by bad timing.
Okay, so some mismanagement as well. But Chris, regardless of who's advertising on the site, I mean, GameSpot hires and pays their journalists for honest critiques of games, right, bad or good. Mm-hmm. What does the future hold for GameSpot or other review sites if gamers believe that maybe the integrity of these reviews is secondary to the corporate sponsorship?
I don't know. I would really have to question how many or how much of GameSpot's readership is actually actively following this story or has lost faith in them. I mean, if you look at the traffic reports for GameSpot when a bunch of readers organized a brownout and decided not to go to that site on last Monday, the traffic didn't even dip at all. And so it seems like maybe this is just sort of going to blow over, and this is just sort of the gamer community getting itself into a huff over something that hasn't really spread out to the average person who jumps on GameSpot and looks at game reviews.
And that may be true, but Chris, do you believe the average gamer or the general gamer out there, they shouldn't they care about this? Like, shouldn't they be looking into this? Shouldn't they question the sites that they visit?
I think you absolutely should be questioning every site that you visit, and you should, compare the reviews that they're putting up to average reviews that are all over the place and get a wide range of opinions, and don't just focus yourself on one website for all of your information about things.
Right. Now, Mike, even though there's information coming out and people are saying, hey, Gerstmann was let go for several reasons, maybe it was completely unrelated to the bad review and it was just a timing thing, what damage has been done, if any?
Well, I think that there's always going to be this mark on GameSpot to some degree for some people. I think like what Chris said, I don't think everybody is really paying attention to it, and there may only be a few people who find that disagreeable. I think more damage has been done to IDOS and maybe the Kane and Lynch franchise, which I can't imagine becoming a franchise after a situation like this.
Exactly. I don't know how you can damage something that no one was going to.
And IO Interactive probably wants to distance themselves away from the whole Kane and Lynch series as much as possible.
Right. All right, Chris, I want to give you the final word here. How do companies avoid this kind of drama in the future? Is it inevitable that this is going to happen again, where somebody's skinned by an Axe body spray ad, but they got to tell you that the scent is delicious, or
I think that ultimately companies really do have to be very wary going forward about just having this iron wall between the advertising and the editorial departments. And I mean, I'm not saying that they don't right now, just that in case anybody ever thinks that maybe the wall is made of paper and that it's okay to poke a finger through it every now and again, this should really teach them that no, it absolutely should not happen, because there's going to be drama.
I completely agree. All right, I want to thank my guests, Chris and Mike, for joining us. Thank you guys for keeping us in the loop.
Attack of the Show, weeknights at 7, only on G4.